CHATS with Frank Palmer, the marketing, media, and communications talk show. Starring Christina Yu. Thank you to all our sponsors.
Well, good morning or good afternoon from wherever you are, Christina, and welcome to nabs Ad Chats. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you first off for taking the time to discuss your outstanding career with me. I know we were good working together for about 8 years, and hopefully helping us understand the importance of nabs and giving back. And at this point in time, there's more people in need than ever before in our industry. Sure. You are the 6th person that I've interviewed to date, and I already know that our viewers are going to enjoy this conversation on YouTube and Spotify. So for starters today, I'm going to give viewers a little background on your career, some of the creative awards that you've won over the years, and some of those outstanding advertising agencies that you work for, including with me over the years. Does that work for you?
Sounds great.
Hey, okay, well, let's have some fun and get this show going.
Okay.
You've had a very, very interesting career that I've been following, and I've done some homework on. Much of it I've done after you left us, but it's funny when I get into it, I look back and go, I remember that now. I forgot about that. I didn't know she worked there, but my goodness. I think that your first job, if I remember, if I found it correctly, was with Leo Burnett as an interim art director. Is that correct?
It is. It is.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
Oh my God. You're trying to date myself, right? You're trying to make me say how old I am now. It was actually in 98. It was my 4th year. I went to OCAD University, or OCAD U, and it was my 4th year. So while I was in my 4th year, I was also interning at Leo Burnett. I won their scholarship. And
then from there, you went on to Taxi?
I did.
And working for my good friend, Paul Lavaugh?
Yes, yes.
Zach. How was that?
You know what? It was really good. I mean, the reason why I went to Taxi was I love design. I actually loved everything to do with design and conceptual design and whatnot. So I love the fact that when I went there, they just finished doing ClearNet. It's TELUS now, but ClearNet way back when. And they did the store design, they did the packaging design, and they did the advertising. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Not only do you get to do television, you can do the packaging design and the store design and whatnot. So I thought that was so amazing. So I loved it. And I love Jane Hope. And I thought Jane Hope and Paul Lavoie were fantastic together. So I was so intrigued by Taxi.
Yeah, well, Paul and I we share bald heads together. And,
yes, you do.
We always do that when we were in Cannes. We'd put our heads together like a couple of eggs and have a picture taken. But then after Taxi, I think you joined BBDO as Vice President and Associate Creative Director from the years 2002 to 2005.
I did.
And again, another great advertising agency to be working for.
Yeah, you know what? I wanted to shift from a boutique creative shop because I felt like I wanted to learn more about the business side. Like I really wanted to work on the international blue chip, blue chip companies, just because I thought they were more difficult and harder, and I wanted a bit of a challenge. But it was definitely a different awakening compared to Taxi. I mean, you've got a small little independent, and you've got this massive holding company, big network that was global and very structured.
Was it Jerry Frassioni was there at the time? Yeah, I know Jerry quite well. And it'd be interesting to know what Jerry's doing today. I'll have to check in on that. But then you went over to join a very, very interesting, colorful character.
I did.
Jeffrey Roche.
Definitely.
Lowe Roche. How do you pronounce Lowe Roche?
Lowe Roche. Lowe Roche.
Tough to say early in the morning. VP Creative Director, and I'm sure that was interesting for you because he was a very unique character, and I enjoyed him. And he very outspoken, colorful, displayed his emotions sometimes a little bit differently than what some people might like, but very nice guy, good guy. How was that?
It was great. I mean, that was the first time I became like a full creative director. And at that time, I wasn't, I was actually fairly young at the time. I think I was like 26, 27, but he thought I was ready to be a creative director. And I was very nervous about becoming a creative director, but he was so convincing. Like he wrote this massive long letter and basically wrote out my career path and how he was going to make me a good creative director. And from there, I was like, okay, this is fantastic. So I went for it.
He was your tutor.
He said basically like, you know what, he basically said, you're going to be a creative director on Training Wheels and I'm going to train you. And on top of it all, I'm going to have Matthew Bull, who's the chief creative officer global of Lowe, work with you as well. And so I had this kind of local global mentorship that I was really excited about.
Yeah. Was he the character every day in the fancy clothes that he used to wear?
He is everything you know of him and more. He is definitely, he was at every morning. I think it was every morning we'd have like this stand up and he would play music and do his thing in the morning, just to kind of get everybody all excited. And I know he was meticulous with his.
I'm going to probably put him on the list to have to interview him down the road and bring up some of the past. But then,
he's just like you. He's all meticulous, like always well dressed.
I'm not as meticulous as him. My partner here, Bob Stamnis, is Bob runs around with a little poof here and a little flower.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
matching pretty snazzy right now.
Matching socks,
Yeah.
But I
remember you having pretty good socks, though.
Yeah. Well, I had some pretty good socks. That's about me. And but then after that, I think I had the pleasure of working with Red Urban. Is that where you came from?
That's right. That was a transition. Yeah. I couldn't.
And it was very unique and boutique creative agency. And your title then was executive vice president and creative director. And you were there from 2010 to October of 2018. So you were with me for about 8 years.
Yeah. That's
and then you went from there and joined Rethink as a senior managing partner and creative director. And you were there for what, a year and a half or so. And then you joined this other company. When I first saw this other company called Ostrich & Co., I was thinking of the other guy that used to work for us in DDB by the name of Ostrich.
All right.
Yeah, I thought maybe he renamed his company, but this is a different company. But being in between that period of time before you joined, you spent about a year and a half freelancing and running your own consultancy. How was that?
It was great,
Was it
like,
good?
Yeah, this all happened during the pandemic. Everything kind of happened. I parted ways with Rethink, like literally days when the pandemic happened. Frank got let go because of the pandemic. And then I spent, I spent a year trying to figure out, what would be, what was my new path. And I really wanted to focus on what I'd love and what I was passionate about. So I gave myself a long time to figure out what that was.
I'm kind of right in that zone right now, trying to figure out what I want to do when I get older. It's funny. Jumping right back into the fold again. But basically, I know this for a fact, is that you're recognized as one of Canada's top 100 leaders and was named a marketing icon in marketing. On top of all that, you've won and received many numerous awards from Cannes, The One Show, DNDAD, and many others. You've also been a judge at Cannes, the Clios, the CA, and now others. And I'm sure I've missed a number of those awards, and hopefully I didn't get too many of the dates wrong, but you are definitely one of Canada's top thought leaders and definitely is a marketing icon. And I did enjoy all those years of working with you because you wouldn't do anything if you couldn't do it better than, you know what I mean? You just had to top yourself each and every time that you did something. And one of the things that I know is that even in an early conversation that we've had right now is that you've had lots of accolades and success, but you are still very laid back and very humble and a really nice, special person. So I just want to get that off. So we're going to start by asking more questions now. Tell me where you
Sure.
were, where were you born?
I was born and raised in Toronto.
Ah,
I never left.
never left. You're like me, Vancouver, never left. Never
No,
left.
never left. Born in Toronto, schooled here, went to college here, and worked here. I mean, I've had opportunities to leave, but you know what? I've always loved Canada, and I love Toronto.
What made you go? Everybody who got into a certain field, I was always a pretty good little cartoon guy. I could draw lines and Bugs Bunny and that kind of stuff. But what made you want to go into design and advertising? Were your parents creative, or were you just creative all the time?
You know what? My parents were creative, especially on my father's side. My grandfather was very creative. My uncle was an architect. My dad was like, he always tinker with things and play around with things. He was an engineer, but they were actually in a fashion manufacturing company. So we manufactured clothes when I was younger. And so, you'd always see them kind of make these beautiful gowns, actually with Alfred Sung and Wayne Clark, some of like the amazing Canadian fashion icons. My family produced some of the clothing there. So there is a bit of creativity in the genes,
Right.
but the way that I got kind of geared or even, a pathway was given to me with advertising was through high school. I've always liked I always liked the creative side, but never thought there would be a career in the creative side. In fact, to be honest, and I think maybe I share this with you, is like I wanted to be a lawyer.
Really?
And I actually also wanted to be a cop, except for
Me too.
I know you wanted to be a cop, or were you a cop? I can't even remember anymore. But I wanted to be a cop, but I'm also like just barely 5 feet. So I don't think the intimidating
that wouldn't
factor.
matter now. You could be a cop now. It doesn't matter how tall you are or not.
Yeah.
They'd even
I just
maybe
don't think I'd have that intimidating, I just don't think it'd be intimidating. I can just picture myself, like knocking on the door and they would, they wouldn't see me because I'm too short or something like that. So
no, I've seen you in action. I think you could be intimidating.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've seen you get your way on various ad campaigns because you didn't think the other people were right. So this is the way we're going.
It's true.
I see the cop. I mean, with all these agencies that you work for and larger ones and Leo Burnett and Taxi, was there any particular learnings that you get from working in big agencies and small agencies? Because they're all different, eh? I mean, a lot of people
do.
The processes sometimes are different.
Right.
Operating style, different clients to work on. As you said, you move from one agency to another for different clients. I mean, when you work with Red Urban there with me, you probably had 45 people or 50 at tops, right?
Yes.
And then the DDB, which was upstairs or somewhere in the same building, had like 300 people.
Totally.
And I kind of like the atmosphere in Red Urban better,
Yeah, you know what? I do like small and intimate. I do like collaborating and when you're smaller, you're able to collaborate. There's less silos. You tend to be, a little bit, feistier. You get your hands dirty, you work harder, you do it as a group and a team. Not to say that you can't do it as a larger agency, but I think you have to build an agency differently. Yeah, like definitely.
Well, I know that, I guess when Lowe Roche he was independent for the longest period of time, and then he joined the network, and then after that, it seemed to go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, well, he was always majority owned, a part of a network. So when I was there, he still had creativity control and financial control because he was the majority. So he was 51-49. When it shifted where the holding company got 51 and he was 49, that's when everything started changing. I was gone by then. I was already at Red Urban at the time, but it's
funny how that happens, eh?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I was,
You know the experience, Frank?
well, I do. And I know a lot of people that have been, well, I mean, fortunately for me, when it was Palmer Jarvis, DDB,
Yeah.
and we were totally owned 100% by DDB, but they left me alone for like
Yeah.
15 of the 18 or 20 years. And then it started to change. We get bringing different people and it starts to change. And then it wasn't as fun anymore. And of course, a lot of people now that like yourself that have gone through a number of agencies and you go off to do something different, you go because you got the freedom. You can do basically collaborate. And the collaboration is something that I find is very difficult right now because here we have maybe 30 people all together, and any given day there's maybe 5 here, right? Because of
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out how to operate under a very different atmosphere now because you're doing Zoom calls and getting people lined up to do that is not as easy as it is to say, hey, Christina, can I talk to you and Steve for 5 minutes? Can't
Yeah.
do that. How are you finding it?
You know what? It's been I mean, I'm sort of in a different world now, but especially during the pandemic, it was harder when I was like, I freelanced at Zulu and I did it at a few other companies. It is harder to like get the creativity going when everything is so formal, right? Because whenever you want to talk to somebody, you have to like create a Zoom meeting, and it's not like where you could easily just kind of riff and go into a room and start talking about stuff. But I do feel like people found a way of being more disciplined and more creative as well. It just allowed you to write down your words more, and you're more disciplined on your decks and whatnot. And you're probably presenting a lot quicker than you're used to. So, there's good things and bad things. There's not as that spontaneity and that spontaneous creativity, but there's also a certain discipline that comes with having to Zoom and be organized and
Good lessons.
Structured, I guess.
So as a woman, a very beautiful woman, you look great, as I said when we opened this up. Have you found ever being a woman in a creative position or just in an advertising business any kind of a hindrance at all?
You know what? I never thought about it when I was, I think I came into advertising a little naive. Like I honestly like was just like, hey, I think a lot of people, which was very encouraging for me, lifted me up. Like, so I had a lot of great mentors, including you, Frank, who basically not only sheltered, but also like helped me lift me up, basically said, you can do anything. And I really took that to heart. So I never looked at any barriers. I just kind of went, okay, well, if you think I can do it, I will do it. I will make that happen. But now looking hindsight, as I've been in the business for well over 20 years, I can see a lot of barriers and I can see a lot of, unconscious bias. And I'm more open to that now. And I try my best to help other females or other, of other diversity, inclusion, to be more inclusive, or that's not even the right word, to be just belonging, because even in the word inclusive feels odd now, right? It's almost feels like an outside word coming in.
Well, it didn't stop you from being aggressive or very inclusive and working with Subaru and Volkswagen. I mean, here you are, a woman, and working in a man's kind of industry where most of the car sales dealers and we're all owned by men, and the marketing departments are all run by men, and
true.
and here you are, you're maybe this is where the police officer 5-foot person comes into effect by saying, this is the way we're going to do it. And all the commercials that we were doing that you were working with, you had with Subaru, you had 5 consecutive years of record sales.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, those commercials that were being done, and the sales results. I wondered if it was, we were talking maybe a little earlier today about the Mad Men show and whether or not I hit that area. I said, well, I wasn't quite there at that time. I would be about 100 if it was, but it's an era that I would love to be able to go back to. Maybe they need to have maybe a show called Mad Women. then you would be one of the main characters in that role, you know?
That'd be good, I guess.
Yeah.
Besides
And
the fact that I'd have to be in something, but
yeah. You said, I think I read in an article, you said that getting your first job was your greatest hurdle. Why?
it was.
Why? Women?
It was hard to get my first job. It really was. Like, I was, I was on top of my class. You know, I did well, you know, won the scholarships, but all my friends were getting jobs before I was. And I felt a little frustrated. And I've always been a bit, you know, introvert, don't really like going out, not really comfortable with selling myself too much. I'm confident in the work. I'm not confident in myself. So I think I had a hard time cold calling people and kind of going in and really figuring that out. The only way I felt like I was able to get an interview was asking for help. So I would go in and go, hey, can you help me on my book? Can you inspire me to get better? And that was my only way of kind of getting my job. So I wouldn't go in and go, I'd like a job. I'd go, hey, can you look at my book? And hopefully, you know, you see something in me and then you'd hire me, but I wouldn't go other way. So it took me a bit to get a job.
I kind of liken it in a way to a lot of comedians when they have to work certain clubs before they get discovered, right?
Right.
And a lot of those comedians go back and work in those clubs just to keep fresh. Right?
Yeah, no, I can see that.
And you, other than the auto business, you were also big in the beer business.
I was.
Yeah.
Beer and cars.
Beer and cars. And where pretty much every person in the advertising business wants to work on beer and they wanted to work on cars. And I know for years, DDB had a Budweiser and Bud Light and all of that. And I think that maybe I'm just wondering if your trick was to drink more than them.
I think we've drunken before, Frank, and you know I'm a massive lightweight.
Yeah, I know. You're light, yeah.
I turn red in like, you know, like half a teaspoon of beer.
Jeffrey Roche said in an article, she's a very, very talented art director to start. She grew up with a mouse in her hand and not a pencil. And she has a way of getting the best out of people. Give her the right canvas and she can do anything. I think that was a pretty neat quote that he put together.
Yeah.
And I found that.
Nice.
Was your best advice someone like your grandmother gave you? Work hard, be nice to people. I read that somewhere too. Or is it your driving passion? You're a nice person, but you can't always sometimes get your way with being nice.
No, you can't. I mean, yeah, my grandmother was. Well, I mean, I know specifically this one story where I was so tired working at Taxi one weekend or something, and I kept working and she kept going. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just really tired. And she's like, you can't be tired. You can't. This is your job. You got to work. And I'm like, but I'm tired and I need a break. And she's like, no. You got to keep at it. This is something that you got to do and you got to do it right. And so I always remember that. And maybe it is like, you know, the philosophy of you know, that generation of, you know, working hard and playing hard. I mean, my grandmother was like, she wore like fur coats. She's got like, you know, not that you can wear fur coats anymore. Got the gem glasses, drove a Cadillac, you know, and she was like the life of the party, but she worked really hard as well. So,
well, I'm thinking maybe that's partly your driving passion. And the second question is that some fantastic commercial, and I'm going to play a spot for it, was the story you created on VIN 903847.
Right.
And that campaign was all about following the journey and maybe grandmother's journey. But this was a 1955 Beetle from the past to the present. And there's a documentary that's aired now on Bravo and Discovery Channel. Let's just play that one spot here for us. just the kind of the opening for that spot. I mean, I remember that, and you had to track down this 82-year-old guy called Paul Loofs, right?
Yeah. He lives in a Victoria.
Victoria, yeah. And that project, and it took over a year, I think, did it not?
No, it took more than a year. It took like about 2 years to make.
Really?
Yeah. 2 years, two presidents.
Well, the managing
I think I
director.
gave birth right when it launched. Yeah.
Well, your marketing director at the time from Volkswagen was a Lynn Pinette.
Olympiad.
Yeah. She said the campaign was about celebrating the truly remarkable stories about a single car, how one car connects so many people in their experiences, proving itself as the people's car. How did that all come about? Was it something that you created? Was it an idea that you?
Yeah, you know what? How it came about, and I salute the entire team who worked on it, because it really was a team effort. It came about because it was their 60th anniversary in Canada, and they wanted to do, believe it or not, just one social post, just a little social post on Facebook saying that they were that it was their 60th anniversary. And we took that opportunity and we're like, you know what? I think we want to do more than just that 60th. This is a big deal. And so we created a brief and just got a team to think about what they could do. And this one team said, hey, what if we, went in their archive and, found cool stories? And I'm like, well, that's not really an idea. Because there's no story yet. You need to find the story for it to be a bigger idea. And that's when this is when, and you talked about it, where we had a really good relationship with Volkswagen. We had a really good relationship with Lynn. And, we just asked them if they had any interesting stories. And they said, well, we have an archive. We have an archive in our basement that has all these folders and stories and old pictures of like when Volkswagen came to Canada, and we had some pictures and this and that. And so we actually sent an intern into the basement vault of Volkswagen and said, go find us pictures, go find us some stories or pictures, and whatever you find that's interesting, come back. And he was actually an account person, not a creative person. And he went and he goes, yeah, there wasn't much, except for I found this folder, and this folder had these 3 pictures. And one was a picture of Paul Loofs, but he had his Beetle, and it said Canada on the Beetle, but he was standing in front of a sign that said Ecuador. And we're like, how does that work? How is he having a Canadian car in Ecuador? And then he had another picture, and he was somewhere else in like Africa or whatnot. And we're like, what is going on? And that was it. It just said Paul Loofs in the back. And he had sent these pictures to Volkswagen way back when. And there was this stored in the basement. And so from there, we went, wow, this is so fascinating. I want to know more about this story.
Here's the cop again. Here's the cop again, right?
Oh, is it the cop? I want to hear more. But we can't sell this to the client. We need to find out more information about this person. So we did a little minor digging, and we found that, little bits. He actually did. There was an ad done in DDB New York about him. It was just this minor ad, and we're like, oh, he actually has a story. And so from that point, we're like, this is going to be fantastic, but we can't sell it to the client because it needs to be an idea that was flushed out before we could sell it to them, because it could be very complicated, and we wanted to tell this amazing story. And so we actually hired a researcher. We spent well, you don't know this, but now you know, we spent Red Urban's money to hire a researcher for $5,000 to do as much digging. And she was a documentary researcher, and she just came back with everything. We found out that she had a book. He had a book. He had all the stuff, these passports. She had everything. In fact, she even figured out that the car still existed. And we're like, oh my God, this is so fantastic. And that's how we that was the beginning of the story. And then I actually created a little bit of little teaser edit, not unlike what you just saw, but very amateur. And that's how we sold it to the client. We actually showed her a trailer. Yeah.
Very interesting. And I know that having done some research myself on Volkswagen, there was a bunch of other very interesting things that you did, but I'm going to move over to Subaru for a minute. I mean, here's another client with a story. So let's play that spot.
Come on.
Come on, go make some friends.
It's so tough to give them a run in the city, but they really love it here. Be gentle, be gentle.
We're making friends. See the one that, well, it's just going in circles?
Yeah.
That's mine. Off.
Come on, time to go.
The 2020 Subaru Crosstrek.
Come here.
It's up for
Oh
it.
no. Oh, there he goes.
I just shampooed him this morning.
I had heard afterwards, though, that during that filming, you cracked up one of the cars.
Yes, we crashed 2 cars.
2 cars now. Okay, so there's another story coming out. I thought it was 1 car. Tell Frank this.
One was fixable, I think. The other one was a write-off.
Really?
Sorry, Frank. All these things are coming out.
Yeah. Well, how did that spot come about?
Well, it was a launch of the Crosstrek, which is like, this hybrid type, smaller compact SUV car that can do a whole lot and maneuver a whole lot. And you know what, we were just like, I think we were just like kind of coming up with an idea. We're like, well, what if it had a personality? What if it had like a dog personality? And what if we could show the capabilities? Because usually car spots, they just want to see the car the whole time.
True.
So every car spot, you want to see the car at least 90% of the time. And, they want to see that the car can maneuver and have agility. And so we're like, okay, so that's the problem. So like, that's like, how do you make an interesting car ad where it has to be on screen 90% of the time, and you have to show its performance and it's, like whether it's like, I think they had like the assist, the climb assist and whatnot, and show all those little features. And so we're like, well, what if it had a personality and whatnot? And then we went, well, what if it was like this gigantic dog park and the owners were letting it free? And so that's where it came about.
You also said something that said Ted Latka, who was the vice president of marketing at the time, said, if you take a look at the commercials they've done for us, each one represents a feeling and a personality unique to the brand.
Yeah.
And I think that after they went through a review and went to Zach, Zach's done a pretty good job of keeping that characteristic about the brand with that goat campaign that he did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he did indeed.
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
How important do you think that humor is in advertising? You think it's important?
Yeah, I think we can't take ourselves too seriously. So humor can come in and help us on that, right? And where then, it takes off that edge of seriousness. So I'm a big fan of humor. I'm a big fan of all kinds of emotions.
Well, I'm going to play a little Skittles.
Oh, is there another funny one? Okay.
Well, not a funny one. This is you in an interview. So let's play that interview.
So now I have to watch myself. Is that what you're saying?
You have to watch yourself.
God.
I think it was a fresh idea on a brand that, it was on an idea that has been around for a while, the idea of touch the rainbow, taste the rainbow with Skittles, and it's always been irreverent. And it's interesting that they took irreverence and took it a step further by being interactive, and I think that's the reason why it rose to the top. It was the film was just as good as if it were not interactive, but then the interactivity just made it that much more brilliant, and then those two combinations make for success. And what a simple idea as well. On everything that we would have placed, I would say that it had a strong strategy, it had a sound platform, or it was either that or brand building. It really, we were really hard on that. We were very, very meticulous about getting like just debating on everything. Was if it was a beautiful ad, we'd go, does that beautiful ad work with the client or work with what it's supposed to do? And we debated a lot about that. The line would have been, I guess, oh God, I wish I did that piece of work. It was so brilliantly executed, such a great idea. I wish I'm jealous, and I wish I could have done that.
So are you, like most of the creative people I've been talking to, do you think winning awards are important, and why?
Well, it's the only way to measure success, unfortunately, in advertising. I mean, nowadays it's not as important because you can measure success based on views and the uptake in terms of the cultural uptake. So I would say awards are probably less relevant than it was in the past, but unfortunately our industry still measures success based on awards. And awards, there's many award shows, and I gotta say majority of them are not great. So
Well, they're a business.
it's a business. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. They're doing it for profit, and it's that's why I like the award shows that are not for profit. But I find that that's more sincere. But yeah, unfortunately, you're measured on that. And do I love it? I don't particularly love it, but because I still feel like there's a lot of bias. I way rather someone steal a poster that I did as a form of success, or or the views or whatnot, or the uptake of
Well,
it
didn't
being
you
part
do a
of culture.
campaign for Volkswagen where you did some posters and you put them on street corners and that,
I did.
and they were stolen?
Yes, they were purposely. Yeah, they were frames around town
Yeah.
that were purposely stolen.
Well, in 2016, if you remember, Omnicom won the McDonald's creative account on an idea that you created, and it was called, I believe there's a Big Mac for that. So let's just play that spot.
Woo! Called your own number. Are you bringing the thunder? On the edge of your seat? Your team can't be beat? Only in it for the halftime show? It's okay, we know. Got into formation, pumped up the nation, got your own celebration. Ow! Juicy, cheesy, iconic Big Mac. Now in 3 sizes, but only for a limited time. Man, I'm loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
So here we have this little girl in Canada, creative director, that comes up with the big idea for McDonald's worldwide of an agency out of Toronto that they created called We Are Unlimited. And you come up with the idea over all the people that they hired. Unbelievable. That agency, as you know, only lasted about 3 or 4 years, and then Burnett won the account back. But did you enjoy working on McDonald's?
I did. I loved it. Not to be too close to I'm loving it, but I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed working on it, and the whole big process of working with a bunch of global people.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty. I mean, I was interviewing Keith Reinhardt not too long ago, if you've seen that interview, and we talked about the 2 off beef patties special sauce and how that all came about. But then
I actually played homage to that. There's another spot because we did like 6 spots for McDonald's for the Big Mac for that, and one of them is there's someone who says 2 all beef patty special sauce, lettuce, cheese.
Yeah,
she
right.
goes on and she sings it.
But then you worked on something that was kind of way over to the other side, and I don't know how you got away with it, but let's play that super sexy CPR.
Check for danger before approaching your casualty. See if they are conscious by gently shaking their shoulders and speaking to them. If they don't respond, use a phone to call for help. Look, listen, and feel for breathing. If the person is not breathing, open their airway by lifting their chin with one hand and placing the other hand on their forehead and gently tilting their head back. Give 2 breaths of about 1 second each. Next, find a landmark between the nipples and begin chest compressions. Compression should be 1.5 to 2 inches deep at a rate of 100 per minute. After 30 compressions, give 2 breaths as before. Continue the cycles until the ambulance arrives or the victim shows signs of life.
Well, that came actually, that was like in a car ride. It was me and this writer who were talking about, CPR being sexy and what can we do to educate people about CPR being sexy. And then we hooked up with a lingerie company and we're like, this is perfect. This is perfect to be able to launch a lingerie company that was fairly new at the time, Fortnite Lingerie, a small little Canadian company, and go and then, put it together with the proper CPR. In fact, that is legit CPR because we actually had an expert on set. I'm sure he didn't mind being on set at all.
No kidding.
Sorry. And to make sure that we were properly, because we didn't want to come out going, doing CPR and then people doing it incorrectly. So we did it and we wanted to educate, and then it blew up. It literally, I think we put it on at 10 o'clock at night. And then we sent it to a few people, and then it crashed our server, and then we had to put it back up. And then I think when we woke up in the morning, it was already a few million views, and we're like, "Whoa, what just happened?"
Well, I'm very disappointed with you because you didn't invite me to the shoot.
Right, I'm sure.
Right, so
I know.
I'll hold that against you.
I'm sorry.
I only have a couple more questions, and
No problem.
they are. Who do you look up to for inspiration today? I mean, where do you go if you're stuck? Who do you talk to? I mean, I always had a couple of mentors that I would go to if I was stuck, and then I'd walk away saying, "Why didn't I think of that? It was so simple."
Yeah, I think I go back to all the people I've been a part of in the past. I've gone to you several times, even during my time while I was exploring last year. I whether it was Zach or even Jeffrey, I still talk to, and I talk to Nancy and Janet, and I talk to Judy John a lot too. I've got some fantastic mentors that, who are great, who I would call friends as well. And then I have colleagues and friends that have been helping me throughout my career too. So I go to them, but yeah, it's been good. I mean, now I feel like, even the people that you're a boss for, you go for mentors, you go for advice now. So I like how it's switched around where, I was mentoring them, and now I can get advice from them as well. So really anybody who I just look up to, which I look up to a lot of people. I am one of those people who like getting advice from many people and whatnot, but yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I'm the same. I think that you're never too old to learn, and you're never too old to take good advice.
Absolutely.
And I know that there's many more questions, many more commercials that I could have played, but we're trying to keep these to about 45 minutes. And I know that Nabs and everybody who will be watching this really appreciates the time that you've given us today. And I've really enjoyed catching up with you over this interview. And
Yeah, me too.
hopefully you've enjoyed it also.
Yeah, no, I have. Thank you so much.
So
for
thank
inviting
you from Nabs. As you know, we're doing a great deal here to try to help those. And
Great organization. So
thank you. And,
produced by Nabs.